women from various industries. Spotlighting conversations on timely topics including real estate, investing, career building, diversity, inclusion, wellness, and of course, balancing work and home. I'm Julia Spillman, the CEO of the Eklund Gomes team at Douglas Elliman Real Estate. I'm honored to moderate today's panel with women who inspire me daily and lead by example. We want this to be an honest and open, no judgment zone, as today more than ever, there are stressors we've never encountered before creeping into our daily lives. I want this to be a place of support and encouragement. And speaking of that, I want to start by introducing our co-host, Command Collective founders, Del and Bianca, who have worked so incredibly hard to curate amazing panelists and content. I'm also so proud of them for just launching their own PR firm and putting into practice what they preach as women leaders. Del and Bianca.
There we go. Hi guys, sorry, mute button.
No, thank you so much. So we are the founders of Command Collective, which is a newly launched PR agency. And we decided to do this to do what we love for the clients we love.
Yeah. And we just want to thank all of you guys and Julia for, being with us here today and being open and shedding light on these important topics. So thank you guys. And we're excited to be part of it. Pass it over to Suchi.
Hello, everyone. I'm super happy to be here in such amazing company. And first of all, Julia, thank you so much for moderating this. And Dale and Bianca, congratulations. It's just really amazing to see young women starting things that matter. And I think you are just, going to be cresting the wave of what I see as a whole new wave of female leadership. And I think after what happened in this country last night, I think everyone's looking for a little bit more of that. So perhaps we could, set an example here today and start a conversation about the kinds of conversation and support that we should be offering to the communities that we belong to. And I'll turn it over to Vanessa.
Thank you, Suchi. Ariana, Julia, both of you at Command Collective, thank you for inviting me to be here. When we got together to chat before we had this panel, I was so inspired by the energy that everybody brought to the group. I wanted to say to the room, right, to the virtual room. But, I've really focused very much in my business on the way that I interact with people and the people I choose to work with. And what I look for is people with a generous spirit who are really interested in supporting other women in their businesses, where it's not about competition, it's about lifting everyone up. And that's really what I felt from everyone in the group. So I'm so appreciative to be here and to be with all of you, and that this was put together. And I'm really excited to dive into the topic today. So I guess I'm passing it to Ariana.
Guys, good morning. I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here and be a part of this amazing group. I think one of the biggest proponents of women supporting women, especially in the business space. And I am just so excited for, this series of what we're going to be offering to people over the next couple of weeks. And I'm really, really excited to see what we have in store for today for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, ladies. So when we think of building community and connection, it now, of course, has a very different and seemingly impossible literal interpretation. We've essentially been forced to shift from building physical community and connection in person to, of course, doing it in a digital way. To say the least, things have changed dramatically this year. For me personally, it's changed my everyday in ways such as shifting from running a company and expansion, living out of a suitcase from our 3 states and 5 offices, to working and living nonstop in my home here. It actually had me questioning my purpose and my passion, 2 things that I've always been so incredibly deeply rooted in. I had to find a new way digitally to serve my purpose. I started by rebuilding my calendar to make sure I was achieving my weekly goals, and now a new environment and routine. But of course, all the while not losing sight of the vision at hand. I had to think of myself as a wartime CEO and had to go from questioning all of this that was going on to how to protect everything. Mentally, I had to rewire and rework a plan that quite frankly had been serving me really well for the last 3 years. I actually named my shift the pastas to PJs to passion and purpose. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how this has affected each of you, and most importantly, how have you navigated this shift? So Suchi, let's start with you. I mean, you have created spaces and designs that build community, that build connection in the most literal and physical ways possible. Can you tell us a little bit about how this shift has affected the design community, and also how we create a sense of community and connection while of course being physically distanced in today's environment?
Thanks, Julia. That's a really interesting question, and I think a really important one to kind of set the ground for all of our experiences over the past 6 months. As an architect and an interior designer, I've built, as you know, homes and buildings for many families, and I will say one of the most satisfying things amid all of the anxiety and uncertainty of the past 6 months has been these notes that I get from my clients that keep saying to me, we are so happy in this beautiful place that you designed for us. The entire family has come here. We're here with our grandchildren. We're enjoying it. You know, thank you for making this possible, because I think what has happened is that there's been this huge shift in the zeitgeist to actually valuing our environments and the well-being and the feeling of health and emotional and mental health that our spaces can have on us. And as you know, my other passion is a field called neuroaesthetics, where I really look at neuroscience and architecture and design and how actually our environments are affecting our brains and bodies. And my work has always been directed by this mantra that's form follows feeling. I've always wanted to generate spaces and places for people from a place of feeling, not so much from style. They're always beautiful, but they have to make you feel good. And I think, you know, as a culture, we've really devalued our emotional health. And I think that's been one of the biggest things, you know, aside from sort of running my firm of, it's a medium-sized architecture and interior design firm. We had to go remote, you know, figuring out how to do work that's really quite physical and quite collaborative in this digital manner. I have to say my team did a valiant job in sort of figuring it out, you know, helping me figure it out. We did it together. We even did like design projects that we started from scratch through this time. And it was actually really great to see that it was possible. That we've now started meeting for short amounts of time when we can get together and we actually have to see and touch and feel things together. But aside from that, we've managed, and I think that will have a huge impact as we go forward, you know, for the design community and outside of it, because I think what we will do is find what I have a feeling will be the other question that will come up during this talk, is this idea of balance. You know, and really this sense of how do you balance both things? How do you balance the need for privacy with the need for community? How do you balance the need for doing things yourself while feeling supported, you know, to do those yourself, but also being in community while you're expressing those ideas and knowing how to do it? And I honestly think that we will find a way. I think it's going to be a hybrid model, and perhaps it's good for everyone that we even look at re-examining what productivity means. I will say it's so interesting to hear you talk about how you went from pastas and PJs to passion, and I forgot the other word you used, but
Purpose.
Purpose, exactly. And I think these kinds of moments have this kind of clarifying effect for everyone, you know, where really everything becomes very clear. You understand, you know, the stress that, you know, we were all on planes for most of the time. I don't think I spent as much time in my house, you know, in the last like 3 years, you know, and altogether as past in these past 6 months. And I think we're realizing that the ways in which we navigate stress, how much stress we actually want or want to allow into our lives, you know, why we think that's worth doing, the purpose of that, is something that we're really evaluating. But one of the most actually rewarding things about this time, as I said, was really getting these beautiful notes from people who are in spaces that we've designed.
Well, as I always say, and I mean, couldn't agree with everything more, you know, it always was the saying of, you know, home is where the heart is. And it's like, now it is, home is also where the work is, the family is. It's, the home is like the literal space for safety, for privacy, for everything. And I think especially with millennials, this was the first time that they really placed true value on the home, because it was always a very like transient existence, and that was a place to kind of like get mail and to sleep, but it never really had that home environment. And I think that's why you're seeing, that class of buyers, coming out in droves, because now they're really understanding what that means. So Vanessa, when you founded Nushu, it was a real game changer for the space. How have you and the community handled the shift and adapted to our new norms? And what, of course, advice would you give us?
Yeah, so just a tiny bit of background really quickly on Nushu. I founded Nushu really as a place for people to come together and experience intentional community. What Nushu basically is a space where we hold groups, and you come with whatever's on your mind, whatever's in your heart, and you are able to share that into a space of non-judgment, compassion, and love. And what I really did was stumble upon this incredibly simple but powerful modality. People have been sitting in circles since the beginning of time. It's nothing that I've invented, but it's almost that we've forgotten how to do it. And there's a tremendous loneliness crisis in this country, even before COVID happened. And one thing I will say about what has shifted during COVID is that I've had a real realization that physical proximity does not guarantee feeling connected. And being apart and digital does not preclude connection. And that connection really has to do with whether you're allowing yourself to be seen by other people, whether you're allowing yourself to be who you are without covering it up to other people. So that's really what we do in group. And what's interesting about what happened in the last 6 months is, I always try to frame whatever happens in the sense of, what does this have for me? What can this teach me? And so, what I heard you talk about, Julia, is really you taking this massive pattern interruption to how you've always done your work, right? Like, I get up and I do this and I travel a lot, and all of these things that we sort of do a little bit mindlessly because we need those patterns in our life to be able to say, like, we don't decide every morning, like, am I going to go to work today? It's just something that we've built into our pattern. But what happens in a pattern interruption is there's an opportunity to really examine everything that we've just allowed to happen over and over again because it's what we did the day before. And so I'm not downplaying how challenging pattern interruptions are. I had to sort of, I've got 5 kids schooling at home, and I've had to figure out what that means, and the work and the kids and the day and breakfast. So it's definitely challenging, but in the challenge, there's always a lesson. There's always something to learn. And so for us, over the last 6 months, we've always held our events in person. I think there's something really powerful when you are allowing yourself to be seen, to connecting in a room, nervous system to nervous system with other people. But we had to adapt. And there are beautiful things that came out of it. We have groups where we have people from, Romania and South America and London and San Francisco. And so there's been a possibility for a broader reach for people who haven't had access to certain things because they're not in major metropolitan areas to all of a sudden have access to these things. So I think, all of us have had to overcome the challenges, but I think there are also lots of lessons and things to get out of this time. And I think that it's become an opportunity to really, there are no rules anymore, right? There are just no rules. There's no, I have to because everybody else does. We almost get to rewrite our own rules. We get to rewrite the rules of how we work, how we balance our life, the way that we structure our day, and how we live in our spaces. And so I think if we see it not only as a challenge, and again, I do not want to downplay the challenge of this time, but there are opportunities in this time.
Well, and I love that, Vanessa, and obviously I love that, you were doing this beforehand and, saw the opportunities there, but more importantly, that you've been able to really shift to such a digital platform for support. And I think one of the things, as you said, as much as I love the routine, and, you know, I'm a Libra to definition in the sense of like, I love schedule, I love stability. But I think for me, I really needed to have that broken to really examine it, and quite frankly, to change some of it. Because I said the last 3 years I've been doing the same. I could do that for the next 30, but there were pieces of that really needed to, quite frankly, needed to change and needed to be questioned and needed to be reworked. And I probably would have never done that until, like you said, we were forced to. So I think as much as obviously this has been a very rocky and turmoil time, I think that it's always important to look for like, what are those silver linings that you can really, you know, change in your life, you know, for greater impact. Ari, let's switch over to real estate. So the real estate game has obviously changed tremendously. And, you know, a lot of our markets and states have seen epic success, and obviously some of them have changed a little bit of their daily pattern. But given that real estate is clearly about connections or interactions face to face, how has this dynamic changed your day to day in Orange County?
Yeah, I mean, it's the second COVID hit, it was just such an interesting time. I mean, our world, it felt like completely stopped. You know, but like you just said, silver linings in every situation. During COVID and when it first hit, it gave my partner Seth and I a time to really reevaluate our business, where we were, and we ultimately ended up joining Eklund Gomes. Real estate is a business that's constantly changing. You know, whether it's interest rates or styles of homes or decor. And for us, changing our day-to-day of really being involved with people and clients face to face was challenging at first, but we, you know, immediately went to everything virtual. So virtual listing appointments, virtual showings. You know, we've really brought in technology to help with video tours and readjust our business plan and how we reconnect with people. Real estate is a really important thing to have communication with clients daily and make them feel important, because they are. And for us, we're really making it a point to touch them more with phone calls, text messages, Zoom calls, and just being really active with our clients, you know, in a way where we're respecting what's happening with COVID, but still being productive. And I feel that with the change and everything, I feel that we're more efficient now with, you know, more Zoom calls during the day. We're able to have Julia on the call, or Fred and John if people are not in the same place. And it really goes a lot further because people are now having access to all of us at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it definitely has been a change, but it's been really great for us. And we've never been more productive and just taking on inventory and selling inventory. It's allowed people to spend time in their homes and realize they want more space. So we have been very, very busy the second half of the year. So we're excited, and it's, you know, a change, but we're always ready and forward thinking. So we're very thankful for that.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, you know, we're so incredibly, you know, excited and grateful to have you and Seth and, you know, and your OC team joining us. But I think, you know, just to touch upon what you said, you know, you and I were able to really connect via, you know, everything that wasn't in person, and, you know, work that way for so long. And I think that one of the things that really allowed you to shine very, very bright, and obviously we have a lot of big personalities and a lot of loud voices, but the fact that you were so organized and you're such a great communicator, that translates in any type of, you know, communication, whether it's digital, it's in person. And, you know, I think it's been really fun to see how people react to all situations, but quite frankly, their ability to pivot and grow, which I think for you, you know, has just been so amazing, quite honest, as, you know, as I've said to you, like very, very inspiring for not only me, but for all the team. So thank you for everything you've done to really be an amazing, not only leader, but of course, you know, a woman leader to the team. So speaking of that, you know, we've all had to adopt to a new norm where professional communities can no longer grow in a sense of a daily in-person interaction. It's much more challenging to really know if we're instilling the sense of confidence in those who we're leading, and of course the communities that we're bringing together. For example, as Ari and I were talking about, right now our team is in the midst of yet another expansion in Orange County, which Ari is a lead of. Our sales in California and Florida have been nonstop, while I was sidelined as an executive in New York with all of the, of course, the travel bans and quarantine. So the foundations, you know, that I've really had to hone on is, how can I serve my purpose remotely? How do I add value without being physically there? Something I'm really known for and take pride in is really physically being in these markets and being in the trenches with the agents. And of course, you know, I couldn't do that in the same way. And how do I connect without a handshake or a hug? So, you know, of course, we had troops on the front line, and I had to remind myself that I'm still the general, we're still at war, and I was forced to find creative ways to fulfill my duties and to find my purpose, of course, in a new way. Again, Ari and her partner, Seth, you know, we felt like we knew each other weeks before, or excuse me, months before I actually was able to finally meet them in person a few weeks ago. As the travel ban was lifted to California, I was able to travel out there and do some amazing work with them. You know, it really was a leap of faith on all of our part, you know, to do something this major through calls, through Zooms, through texts, through emails, really from initially hiring them to some of our many first deals together. So Ari, how has this all resonated with you? And, you know, more importantly, how can you encourage other people who are looking to do a little bit of a career shift and, quite frankly, do it very, very successfully?
Right. I mean, I think first and foremost, you guys having all of your systems in place was the biggest thing that really helped us make that decision. You know, and like I said, communicating with you guys via FaceTime, everything else was so important for us to make that decision, because you know, to pick up your business and move from one place to the other is a lot of work. But when you have the support and the systems, it makes it a lot easier. So if someone's looking to make a change during this time, I mean, reevaluate where you're at in your business, what your goals are, what you're looking to do. And, you know, if you are making a change, make a to-do list of, okay, what are my systems? How do I have to get organized? How are we going to transition? Is this the right move for our clients? And this really gave my partner Seth and I a chance to see, you know, where are we lacking in support for our clients? What can we do better? How can we do better? And making the transition was what we had to do. And it's been the best thing for our clients and for us. So just having systems in place, being organized and communicating will help you get from A to Z in a very easy way. Definitely a lot of work though. So, but it's, you know, without this time and COVID and everything else, I don't think we would have ever thought about leaving where we were before. I mean, we were so complacent with what we were doing, you know, so it's good to get outside your comfort zone and help grow.
Yep, absolutely. And I also think too, you know, again, you guys really were able, I think this in any industry is a real opportunity to gain more market share. And, you know, the cream is always going to rise to the top. So I think while a lot of people, you know, really kind of pop their head back into a turtle shell, you guys really saw this as a way to make even more waves there in Orange County, and, you know, really, really took advantage of it. So congratulations. And again, we love having you guys as part of the family. Suchi, with the team working remotely, how do you become a virtual leader now? And then, of course, you know, you're in such a field that is so incredibly hands-on. So I'm super curious how you've been able to connect with your employees and, of course, lead virtually.
Well, I found a couple of things that both Vanessa and Ariana were talking about very interesting. And this is about the nature of connection, you know, and this idea of being a compass and finding your support. You know, because even a compass needs support. We need our magnetic fields on either side of the compass to really know which way that needle is swinging, you know. So when this all started, I actually had one-on-one talks with each of my staff members. And I said, you know, really, this has to be kind of a loop of energy. It goes from me to you and back from you to me. And we have to find a way to kind of keep that loop, you know, like an infinity symbol, almost like kind of going, you know, so that it's supporting all of us and that we can actually connect and talk. And obviously the place of technology and the ways in which we use it, I have to say, are probably shifting to a really much more intelligent use of what we've always had in our hands, you know, in terms of our phones and stuff. It's not just social media. It's not just talking to people about things that you know, probably you didn't need to, but things that could really make a difference. You know, and we've been seeing that politically, we've been seeing that in social movements, we've been seeing that with work. And I will say that, you know, my team's been great at like navigating all the different platforms where we share drawings. It's also been kind of fun to work on a screen with somebody simultaneously. So I can move something and they can move something and I can draw on it. It kind of feels like being a kid again, and you're learning a new skill and a new tool, which has been a great way to do it. What I will say has been really nice is that we've also really had the support of our clients during this time. You know, that the people who want to work with us have been very conscious, very respectful, and very willing to try and find new ways in which to connect too. You know, whether that's taking a walk in the park 6 feet apart while we're talking about design, or it's, you know, whatever it is. And these are new ways of connecting with people. You know, I never would have had a design meeting in a park with a client before, but now I am. And I think that that just introduces a whole different dimension to appreciating our environments, to understanding what's important to us, and really to hone in on something that Vanessa was saying, really bring that energy to it. And I do believe it's possible to transmit that energy, whether it's digital or it's physical, that you're able to make that happen in a room or in a space.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, is one thing we always talk about is the tone at the top. And I think that's so incredibly important that us as leaders, you know, are, like you say, we're radiating and emanating that energy and obviously passing it forward. So I think that's something, you know, and I actually shot a note to my partners, John and Frederick, you know, who lead our team, just thanking them for really like the energy that they've continued to keep, you know, throughout the entire time with their views on New York and how New York obviously is going to return stronger than ever. And obviously Frederick being there in California, you know, leading the team, and just, I mean, miraculous deals that they've been able to put together and close, and record-breaking numbers, but also, you know, time. So, you know, I think that is one of, it's a critical piece that tone starts at the top. So Vanessa, how can we support those within our communities and prioritize human connection, of course, while still being physically distanced?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time thinking about what creates community. And it is a word that is sort of bandied about a lot, right? I mean, it's like everything's a community these days. Mm-hmm. But what is true community? And one of the things that I think is really important about community, if you're trying to bring together a group of people, is that if you really care about that group of people, if you genuinely like them, whether you're somebody in my business or whether you're somebody who's selling a product, if you genuinely like your clients, if you're in architecture and you really like your clients, if you're in real estate and you love working with people and helping them find the right home, they will know. And if you don't, they will also know. It's very visceral. And so the first thing about community is that if you're trying to bring a group of people together, you have to really be invested in that group of people as people and care about them, because that translates. One of the things I think a lot about is, why are we so lonely? Why do we not have deep connections? And what I've seen is that we may have people that we're around, people that we work with, people that our kids go to school with, any sort of communities that are bound together by circumstance. And I call those sort of, you know, circumstance communities, right? People that you just know. But what's the difference between that circumstantial person becoming someone who you actually have a connection with? It relies on a series of leaps of faith where you take a risk and you say, I think I trust this person to show myself to them. And I think that person trusts me a little bit to show herself or himself to me. And then that becomes sort of over time a connection. What we do is we create that intentional community where we just lay it out on the table. And we're like, this is the place where you get to be who you are and no one will judge you. And we all agree to do that together. I really see that translating, both of those things translating so much in what all of you have said. Julia, it's so clear to me how much you care about your team. And I think you just do it naturally, that you are always thinking, what do they need? How can I support them? what can I do for them? And that translates down. On the other side, I think that this sense of intentionality is important, because when you're not in a room and you don't have the water cooler banter, there's less opportunity to tell people how you're doing and what you need. And so I think people need to really advocate for themselves and say, hey, I'm in this position, I'm doing okay over here, but I could use some support over here. And I've seen so much of people who have a really hard time asking for help. We could have a whole panel on people having a hard time asking for help. But I think more than ever, it's become really important to be really intentional about advocating for what you need and asking for help. And that creates a real connection with somebody. Mm-hmm. It's a vulnerable place to ask for help. But I know that for me, part of the thing that keeps me going and makes me feel like I'm in my purpose is helping others. So when you're reaching out to somebody and saying, I could use your help, it's actually a gift to them to give them the opportunity to help. And so I think that a lot of you, the reason I liked all of you from the moment I met you is that you already have this in you, right? You care for your team. Ariana, you clearly care for your clients, and that comes across. And Suchi, you obviously as well. And so that's, I think, a real key to creating a community that feels connected. But I think there's one more step. There's one more level of intentionality that I think, given this medium, we have to do, which is, what do you need? How can I help you, on the one hand? And let me tell you what I need. And can you help me on the other hand? And I think with those ingredients, you can create incredibly strong connections and incredibly strong community, whether it's in your personal life or in your work life. And the technology and not being in a room doesn't need to be a barrier to that.
Mm-hmm. I love all of that. And I think that was something that was really eye-opening for me is, as I was growing in my career and obviously looking to prove to people that, I could be this young woman leader. I think one of the things that I actually did intentionally at the time, but then needed to really rework, as obviously I've been in this role, I think this week is actually 3 years. I needed to be a little bit more vulnerable, to be a little bit more real. And quite frankly, I think that I was missing some of those major connections because I was holding so close to me this like image of perfection. And people obviously don't want to, they can't emotionally connect to someone that they don't feel the ability to let their guard down. And not only do I think that allowed me for much bigger connections with my agents and partners and friends, but quite frankly, it actually allowed me to grow in a much, much bigger way. But it was very hard because, I liked this image, but then I realized, wait a second, that's actually a disservice to people, because I want people to look and see, the struggle, the hustle, the pain that it took me, in 10 years to get to this place. But if all they're seeing is this picture perfect image, they can't actually be able to emulate that walk. And I think for me, it was really important, especially early on, to call my agents, and instead of saying, how are you with deals? Do you need more leads? Where are you? To put all of that aside, knowing that obviously that all is going to come in due time, but how are you doing? How is your family? Where are you going to be located this time? And I will say I learned more over that 5-month period of really the lockdown here in New York than I did in probably the last 5 years about some of these people. And that was a really, really special time to be able to connect in a different way with everyone. So that clearly really speaks to me. So let's talk next about what's to come. What do y'all think will happen next, and how can we prepare for that? And I hope obviously someone here has the answers for that. So Vanessa, let's continue with you. What is your take on this, and how have you seen your community evolve as a result of this pandemic?
I don't have the answer, sorry.
My fingers were crossed on you.
If anybody does, call me and let me know. I mean, I think that there's a major shift happening right now.
Mhm.
A major paradigm shift, and it's on many levels. I think that, again, this could be a whole panel also, but there is an emerging of a different type of energy, a more collective energy. I would call it a more feminine energy emerging out of this time, where we are starting to understand how interconnected we all are, and that the model of achieve at all costs, go, go, go is breaking down.
Mhm.
And I think that there's a different type of leadership that's required at a time like this. And I think that people are understanding that being concerned for the families on a genuine level is not detracting from your success, it's enhancing your success.
Mhm.
And that it is not a zero-sum game. That stepping over people to success is not necessarily going to give you more success than doing the right thing in the context of the work that you do. And it's the way that I've been running my business, one good decision after the other that feels deeply aligned with my heart. And I think that people are realizing that there is a way to do business in this way that actually leads to more success among the sort of parameters that we think of it as, in terms of financial success, in terms of reach, in terms of growth. And people are valuing that type of connection. People are valuing that type of just human interaction in every part of their lives, because of course they're all now sort of conflated, right? Personal life and work life, both physically and time-wise during the day. And I think that people will expect more out of their leadership in terms of the way that they collaborate, the way that they build teams, and the sort of profits over everything model, I think, is being questioned, particularly by the younger generation, the millennial generation. I'm very hopeful, because I see such a shift in that generation. And there are going to be dramatic changes, I think, in the way that people approach their work and their life after this time. I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen, but it's going to, I believe there are going to be shifts that are permanent. And we will not go back to business as usual. Certain things will go back, but the business landscape and the work landscape, I think, will be forever changed.
Absolutely. I could not agree more with you on that. Ari, you know, you and I've talked a lot about this, and I know you're building this new digital community as well. How do you think this will impact the future of connection?
You know, I think that we're going to see people really go a lot more digital and be more efficient with their time with, you know, where you want to connect with people and how you want to build your business. I am in the process of creating a digital space where people are going to be able to come and learn about adult life skills that you really just don't learn in school. And we're going to be speaking on topics such as finance, investing, real estate, career, and really how to navigate those things in your life. You know, we're really embracing the use of technology with that to connect with people around the world, really, to give them the knowledge on, you know, how to better themselves, improve themselves, and get ahead. I just think that people's mindsets have to change and adjust to what's happened. It's the same thing in the real estate world. We adjust to what happens in the marketplace. So it's a time right now where people have a chance to reevaluate your life, career, and just adjust. You know, so be open to what's happening and changing, and just keep moving forward. So mindset is everything. And I'm always a big believer in positive quotes every day and setting my intentions. And that really will help you get ahead a lot faster in life, and just kind of changing that negative of what's been going on to more of a positive situation.
And, obviously congratulations on your new endeavor. And I think that, I was never the person that would get on YouTube or, even like a digital learning class, but, I really tried to change that mindset early on because of course, I did have a little bit of extra time without the travel, without commute, things like that. And I've been actually amazed at the amazing resources that are there in these community spaces on YouTube. Like I joke, I went from always having to have my hair and makeup done, and now I can magically do my own hair and makeup. And, I just learned some really fascinating things that made me look at really how I was spending my time and money, and which of these, again, were I doing because it was just part of routine that I became so just, chained to, but what of it that I really enjoyed, and then quite frankly, what could I do on my own? So I think that there's been a lot of runway for personal growth, but also seeing where there's opportunities and really missed opportunities that can be now like a new space, like for example, what you're doing. So Suchi, do you see corporate cultures and communities shifting over time? And how will you now design be reflected of obviously this new world that we're living in?
Well, I think to just pick up a little bit on what both Vanessa and Ari were saying, I do think there's a series of very important paradigm shifts, both on the personal level, as you were talking about, and on the larger level. But I do think that we tend to set up these sort of false dichotomies for ourselves. It's an either or option. It's, well, if it isn't like it was going to be before, then it can't possibly work. And that's, I think, the kind of mind, and it's really false. It's a false construct that somehow we walk ourselves into because we're used to a certain pattern. And that's where I think this idea of pattern interruption and opportunity is such a big concept. It really has like this huge potential to really disrupt the ways in which we do things, right? So I think it's very possible that for corporate cultures, corporate communities, for design to become a hybrid model. And I've been on a couple of think tanks looking with large companies at how their workforce comes back, what happens to designing the actual workspace, all those physical things like distancing, how do you get people in an elevator, how do you get them out? But how do you also then create, and the most difficult part of that conversation is really something that we're talking about here, which is that at the heart of every organization is a culture. And that culture is the important thing that keeps people together. It's what makes them feel they belong. It's not just going to a space and working in an office. It's the culture and the mood and the attitude and the passion and the purpose that you were relating to before that actually makes people that feel like they belong to something. And that sense of belonging, I think, is really where corporate communities are going to have to really think through very carefully. I think there were years in which, sort of the retail luxury market was going kind of a certain way. And once they started understanding that aesthetics and the senses and all of these things mattered, everything shifted. And there was a whole slew of new companies that came on the market because they were picking up on what people wanted aside from just functionality, that they wanted to feel a certain way, they wanted to aspire a certain way. I think those kinds of things will really play a really huge role, both in our public space and in our private space. And in terms of how I design, honestly, the nice thing about always having designed from a place of feeling is that I'm going to continue doing that, and looking forward to doing larger projects that can impact the most number of people at any time would be really amazing. Yeah, but I think it's very, very important to also keep in mind that I always say our motto, which I think we all have here, including Bianca and Dale, is that we want to have nice people and nice projects. And without that, you can't really put your heart into it, and you can't really deliver something that's unique and beautiful and meaningful to those people. So that sense of care, I think, is something also that, these things can't be ideas that are laughed about in corporate conversations. We have to have the space to be able to have those conversations and know that they carry real weight for the communities that we work with.
Absolutely. And I think, of course, that culture word is so incredibly important, and something, quite frankly, like we pride ourselves on more than anything is really this family element dynamic that we've been able to really build and hone. And I think that was, that again, that separation was so difficult because exactly like you said, I think that's a lot of the reasons that we enjoy working at the crazy intensity that we always have, is because we're surrounded by, not only, of course, in real estate, some of the most beautiful and inspiring places and materials and things, but quite frankly, the people. And that's what's always been, you know, like the driver of why, you know, I never even think about, you know, someone asked me, you know, not that long ago, how many hours I felt like I worked before COVID. And I said, it all kind of runs together, and but not in a negative way, because it's a dinner on a Friday and I don't feel like it's a work dinner because I choose to spend my time with those individuals anyhow. And I think that form of community is something, again, that we're going to constantly kind of be like shifting and evolving and figuring out how that looks and feels, but most importantly, how it continues to support our real personal needs, you know, on a professional level.
Right.
So
I think time has just been like a big lens that focuses purpose on everything we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited to see as you kind of continue to evolve the spaces. But, you know, I think, you know, we'll open it up if anybody wants to type in a question to the Q&A. But something, you know, that I've really thought about, and I was thinking about it this morning in my workout after our great, you know, our prep call yesterday, that I really wanted to ask you ladies is, you know, obviously we're all leaders on this call. And I think sometimes, you know, in situations like Vanessa said, like when you really need support, it's actually harder as a leader to ask for support. So I'd love to ask each of you, you know, what has been your support system during this? And, you know, what are some helpful hints that you can give to other leaders who sometimes feel like they have to set the example, but it's very difficult for them to get that support and, you know, to really hone in on what their needs, quite frankly, are. Vanessa, you want to jump off on this one?
Sure, absolutely. I think that one of the things that leaders do is they lead by example. And so if they're asking people to ask for support and to receive it, they have to do it as well themselves. I think it's challenging sometimes for women who say, do this, and then when they have to do it themselves, they realize how challenging it is. And actually that's part of the lesson, right? It's hard for me too. And telling the truth in those situations is incredibly difficult, but inspiring to people who you're encouraging to do what you're showing by example. For me, I was very intentional about the people that I reached out to who I knew were in similar positions, who I knew were transitioning their businesses from in real life to virtual. I reached out to them and I said, let's do a mind share. I'll tell you everything that I've figured out, every new idea I've had. And I, you know, basically in exchange, will you tell me what you're thinking, what you've seen, what has worked for you? And I found in every single case, there was incredible generosity and appreciation for that. One of the things that I think, you know, when Suchi was speaking about what's happening during this time is very exciting, is imagine there are so many people under pressure needing to be creative in this moment. So many intelligent people in all different fields needing to be creative in this moment, needing to figure out a way in this moment. That to me is going to create a surge of creativity and new ideas like we haven't seen in a long time. And I don't know what they are because they're coming out of the minds of so many people. And I can't wait to see what happens. But for me, it was really about saying, I'm trying to figure this out. You're trying to figure this out. Let's put our brains together and share what we've learned in this moment. And then also make sure to model receiving, make sure to model to the people, you know, I don't have this totally figured out either. I'm muddling through it as well. I love, Julia, what you said about that sort of drive for perfection. There's this incredible dissonance where everyone's trying to be perfect, but no one likes perfect people. You know, it's like, do you like?
It's so ironic.
You know, do you like perfect people? I don't like perfect people because we know it's not. We know it's not true. We know it's not real, and so, but we're still trying. And so there's this fear that says, if I show these people who I really am, they won't like me. or they will judge me, or they'll think less of me. But what happens in real life is exactly the opposite, right? I don't know if you've ever had the experience where you share something and you sort of feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I told you that. And someone comes and says, that meant so much to me. I feel so close to you. And so I think that's sort of been my practice. And in the difficult times, owning the challenge and saying, you know, I need help too, not only to the people you're asking for help, but also to others in leading by example.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you. And I think, you know, one of the things that I actually did during the time was I actually worked with someone, a PhD who specializes really in almost kind of like rewiring things that maybe we've connected to that need to be broken apart for growth. So I did a 4-month program with her during the lockdown. And it was, I mean, it really was some of the biggest growth that I had experienced, you know, in all of my career. And it really changed, again, like you're saying, like we have this connection to wanting to be perfect, but then the realization and the reality is we don't resonate and connect with perfect people, because again, we know that that's not. So really going in and truly rewiring the way that I was thinking about some of these scenarios really provided an opening to really grow. Ari, I'll pose the same question to you. What has really been like your support system, and, you know, what are some good words of encouragement for others looking?
Yeah, I mean, I will say first and foremost, my family's always been my biggest support system with whatever I do in my life. I lean on them for everything. And so that to me has always been what, you know, keeps me rooted. The team support from you, Fred, John, and everyone else, that has been absolutely incredible, supporting us personally and also in our business. And I am actually a part of a referral roundtable group where we meet. There's about 15 of us in different industries, and we have calls twice a month. And that's been a really positive thing during this time, to motivate each other, bounce ideas off of each other on how can we rework our business? How can you rework reconnecting with family and friends, but still, you know, social distance? So I've made it a point to surround myself with those people in my life, because you are the company you keep. So be mindful of that. But it's been great.
Absolutely. Great advice. And Suchi, for yourself?
Well, I think if anything, this time has shown us that the well-being of everybody else is so crucial to our own well-being. So I think the first thing that I've tried to do is try and be compassionate, understand, especially in the beginning of this time, the anxiety and the kind of people being a little frazzled and across the, you know, not as perfect as we might have wanted them to be. But also to take the opportunity to say, if I can't meet people in person, why don't I just try to talk to people across the world that I've always been interested in, that I have never had the time to, because my life here, my physical life here, was taking up too much time. So I've met all of these like amazing, talented, inspiring people that I've been having conversations with. I'm part of a think tank that's like 40 people on the around the country. That's like everyone from musicians to UX designers to coders to makers, thinking about the future. I've allowed myself the opportunity and the time to do that because I didn't have that time before. And so these are the ways. And plus, I've always had a meditation practice. So I come back to that. I always had a meditation space in my office. Have to come back to that and try to stay centered.
Absolutely. I love that. So we've only got a few minutes. I'm going to be mindful of time. But I love this question. And most importantly, I love that it's actually from an amazing, not only Ari's partner, but really male ally. And I think that's something that's so important too, is that we encourage, our coworkers and our friends that are males to make sure they're listening in on this. And like Seth's question, be cognizant and be supportive. So I'm going to read Seth's question. I'm so inspired by women leaders, and I think women are naturally poised for great leadership. I would love to hear your take on the state of women in leadership. As society, have we made strides, and are we in a good place? Is there still a lot of work to do in advancement of women in leadership? I ask because I genuinely want to be cognizant of this. So thank you, Seth. That's an amazing question. Ari, you want to jump on this since this is your partner?
Yeah, I think that we really have come a long way, you know, with people supporting women and in leadership roles. I feel that the workspace is more open to people wanting to do better, and they're not seeing male, female. They're seeing people, you know, as equals because we work just as hard. You know, we're asking them for their advice. They come to us asking for advice. And that's why Seth and I are such a great partnership, is because it's a male, female role and we bounce ideas off of each other and we respect each other. You know, you're always going to have people who try to tear you down, of course, but with that comes a lot of people who are going to be there to support you and help you get ahead in life. So I think we've definitely come a long way. And I think, you know, in the next couple of years, we're going to see even more of a positive change. So I think it's great.
I agree in that. Vanessa?
I mean, there's no question that we've come a long way. And then there's no question that there are still substantial barriers. Some industries more than others, some situations more than others. I do think, though, that there's sort of a shift in the way that women are approaching leadership. I don't know if you guys remember like the 80s power suit situation, where it was almost like women thought, if I dress like a man, if I talk like a man, if I act like a man, then I'll have the power that they have. And I think what's shifted is women are not going to have power and leadership by acting like men. Women are going to have power and leadership by being true to who they are. And that if you're creating a firm where you have different perspectives, not just amongst men and women, but true diversity of perspective experience, you are in a better place. And I think that's the underlying value shift that's going to be required, because there isn't one monolithic answer. And I think that that is evolving. I think that's being incorporated into certain companies more than others. But we are not all adapting to one way of working. The workplace has to adapt to embrace, accommodate, and see the value in a diversity of experience, a diversity of approach, style. And that's not to say that there's like a male style and a female style, right? That's to say that we all have to embrace what each person brings and create that environment. And so, yeah, I think some companies are doing it beautifully. And then I think there are places where it's got a long way to go.
Suchi, you want to touch on that as well?
So agree with Vanessa, and I'm so happy to hear Ari that she feels we've come such a long way. I might be maybe slightly on the other end of that needle, where I really do feel that we've made huge strides. I'm a woman of color. I'm an immigrant. I'm first generation. I've built my own practice here. That's a medium-sized architecture firm. I'm very proud of that. I couldn't have done it any other place and without the support of so many people. But I will say that particularly in fields like architecture, you know, it's less than 2%, I think, where we have registered women architects. Forget women of color, forget Black architects. You know, these kinds of voices need to come out. And I also think that just leads me to this question of this idea of gendered leadership. You know, and I think there's a lot of implicit bias in how we're trained, which oftentimes happens where, you know, if it's a guy and he's 6 feet tall and he has a deep voice, you know, people listen to him more than they will listen to me in a room. And I'll have to make an extra effort to make sure that, an energetic effort, you understand, not you know, being aggressive or anything, but really saying, this is my place and I claim it. And being able to do that is something that I really, really encourage for younger women, to really be confident in all of the things that Ari's doing, where she's teaching people to have financial skills and all these other skills that can round out their confidence in themselves, I think is extremely important. And we owe so much to people like Ruth Bader Ginsburg that we were so sad to lose, who did so much for the cause of women, just even to these kinds of things. These battles are still not won. And I will say that. I think that we've come a long way. We have a very long way to go. And I'm really hoping I will see huge strides in that place.
Absolutely.
Can I add one thing, Julia?
Of course.
I feel really strongly that I have a deep obligation to mentor other women and to help them gain that confidence. And so I think women in leadership positions have a responsibility to nurture that confidence in other women. Was it Margaret Thatcher? There's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. That is like the mantra I live by. And I think, you know, clearly each of you does that, but I think it's really, really important to nurture the next generation of leaders.
Yep. I could not agree with that more. So it's 12 o'clock, so we just hit 1 hour, so I want to be mindful of everyone's time. But ladies, I mean, just so inspired by each of you, so touched that you were able to spend this last hour with us and continuing doing what you're doing, because each of you are making a huge, huge positive impact and change on the future of, obviously, not only you know, women leadership, but just leadership in general. So thank you again. So I look forward to, obviously, more time together, and, you know, next Wednesday at 11 a.m. we will continue our series, and I look forward to seeing everybody then.
Thanks, Julia. Thanks, Dale and Bianca. Thanks, Julia. Really great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.